About a month ago, or more, I don't know, the concept of time is beyond me at this point, Tifo Football, a channel I hold very near and dear to my heart, and probably the best football channel on YouTube, published a video titled "The Club Who Wanted Crocodiles to Control Their Fans." The story seems baffling to say the least. A club owner in the Romanian lower tiers, fed up with fan abuse, bought some crocodiles and dug a ditch around his pitch to put the animals in. Just another crazy story coming out of Eastern European football, right? Well, it's not that simple, and in this following video I will try to take you on a journey to rural Romania, where an amateur club owner managed to play one of the funniest hoaxes on the world's footballing press. In 2002-03, Steaua Nicolae Bălcescu, a very small and rural team from a town of 3,000 inhabitants playing in the Romanian lower divisions, basically tricked the world into believing they would employ crocodiles for crowd control. Even esteemed Western publications like The Guardian took the bait and ran with the story. The official UEFA website has an article on this, and every footballing news site like Give Me Sport has probably retold the story at one point. 12 years after the fact, Pro Sport, one of Romania's biggest sports papers/websites, sat down with the man who started the rumor to find out the truth. Picturing the life and footballing exploits of rural Romanian clubs might be a hard task for any Western audience, so let me set the scene for you. Even nowadays, the word amateur should be written in all caps when talking about these clubs, and Sunday League football is probably the closest thing you can get in England. The clubs themselves are usually run by local politicians or businessmen who either have a genuine passion for the sport and want to help their communities, or want a cheap and easy way to promote themselves. With this situation still persisting nowadays, you can only imagine what it looked like in the early 2000s. As most of rural Romania hadn't changed a lot since the days of communism, bar a few Coca-Cola umbrellas at the local pubs. Alexandru Crânguș, the deputy mayor of the village and the club president, again rural politics and rural football were usually inextricably linked, was fed up with the rowdy crowds that gathered at the local ground, usually around 200 to 300 people. If players were fouled, the player's dad or cousin or whatever would go onto the pitch to have words with the ref, or fans would voice their displeasure with refereeing decisions by walking up to him and shouting. The club thus received several fines and warnings from the FA, and the president had enough. However, the financial situation of the country, and especially the rural parts, were not exactly on par with Liechtenstein, to put it mildly. So naturally, the club barely had money for footballs, kits, club facilities, and of course the fines they kept receiving, not to mention fences or other crowd control methods. Alexandru thus decided enough was enough and came up with the idea of moving the club's pitch, which was nothing more than a glorified field, to another location. Next to his house, there was a large field surrounded by 4 irrigation canals left over from the old communist farming system that was active back in the day. The president thought the canals would act as natural deterrents for fans, as no one would wade through knee-deep muddy water just to yell at a ref, and called up the county football association to propose the change. The new venue needed paperwork and all the required approvals, so the football association sent one of their representatives to inspect the new pitch. The representative, whilst looking at the playing venue, kept nagging Alexandru and pointing out various shortcomings, questioning whether the ditch would really keep the rowdy fans away, therefore rendering the move useless. To that, Alexandru jokingly remarked, "Stop annoying me, or I'll put crocodiles in the ditches and then no one will have the guts to go onto the pitch." The representative had not come alone that day, as a local newspaper reporter was there as well to document the proposed move. When Alexandru made this joke, the reporter told him he would write about his idea in the paper just so people would get a laugh. Soon enough, journalists from the capital city and the country's major sports publications got wind of the story and started bombarding Alexandru with questions and interview requests, finding out about the insane idea through word of mouth. Naturally, Alexandru obliged and kept up the ruse, taking various reporters to see the ditches and telling them the crocs were there but they couldn't be seen as they were hiding underwater or sleeping. With the journalists not entirely convinced, he upped the ante. He had an ex-co-worker who had opened up an exotic pet shop and loaned him a crocodile so that the journalists could take a picture with the animal in his arms. Alexandru remembers that he was terrified, as the crocodile was worth about $250, a fortune in a country with a minimum wage of little more than $80 per month. After that picture was published, his phone practically blew up and had to become a landline, as he had to keep it constantly connected to the charger because he was talking on it almost the whole day long. Every time he talked to a journalist, he kept up appearances talking about how his men dug up the ditches and how he is looking for sponsors to purchase more crocodiles. Even the president of the Romanian Federation, Mircea Sandu, called him up asking him what on earth is going down there and admonishing him for his idea. Since federation presidents in Eastern Europe don't usually like to be disturbed with petty issues from the rural lower leagues, Alexandru called him down quickly by telling him the truth, and the official inquiry was closed and forgotten. The whole story was basically a wind-up to become viral in the press before becoming viral was even a thing, and was done for a good laugh. Alexandru Crânguș remained a local legend referred to as the man with the crocodiles, and even opened up a guest house called The Crocodile, but sadly passed away in 2020. Apart from being a very funny story, it highlights a major issue in how football outside of Western Europe is viewed. From stories of African teams employing witch doctors, North Korean footballers who disappeared, or stories about crazy club owners in Eastern Europe, football in these areas is often viewed as a bit of a joke, usually by the clickbait factories of various sports websites. However, every once in a while, a story gets so much traction that parts of the established press roll with it, and the lack of visibility from journalists from these areas, coupled with fact-finding being somewhat hard, means that these stories crop up even nowadays. Case in point is another story from the Romanian top flight involving Dinamo Bucharest and their footballer Edgar Ie. A former Barcelona Academy graduate, the Guinea-Bissau international did not live up to the hype surrounding him as a young player and bounced around the Turkish league before signing for Dinamo earlier this year. About a week ago, a rumor started spreading on social media that he had sent his twin brother Edelino Ie to play in his stead. Once again, the story went viral and Marca, one of Spain's biggest sports newspapers, published the story. The Romanian club came out a few days ago with a statement condemning the rumors and calling them slanderous, pointing to the fact that a transfer had been verified by the Romanian FA, FIFA, the Romanian League, and the Bureau of Immigration. Once again, clickbait won the day, as Sports Bible, a beacon of sports journalism, stated that the league was considering employing a DNA test to determine the player's identity, probably forgetting the fact that identical twins share 100% of their DNA. To cut a long story short, the next time you see an outlandish story coming from a football league that is on the obscure side, make sure to have several grains of salt nearby. And if you like obscure football stories, but the real ones, not the clickbaity ones, make sure to subscribe to my channel, as that is basically what I'm dealing in. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope I will see you next time.